Hello and welcome to You Know Me, the podcast, Brunswick and the Golden Isles, and also Darien.
Yes.
We are in Darien today.
We are on a beautiful day, too.
This is Buddha, and
this is the Beard.
As usual. And we are here at Darien at a place that, really sparked my interest when they reached out to be here. It's the Ashantilly House.
I'm glad you said that because I would probably not be able to pronounce that.
Did I pronounce that right?
It's close. A lot of people are not quite sure how to pronounce it, but they do see that word. St. Simon's, there's a street, Ashantilly.
Yes.
We tend to put a little bit more emphasis on that Ashantilly.
Now, real quick with that, where did the name come from?
It's a good question. The Spalding family, Thomas Spalding, who was early Georgia planter and resident here, built this house. His family had a castle in Perthshire in Scotland. And the castle is still there, actually, and it is Ashantilly, probably, and different spellings come out of Scotland, but it has morphed into Ashantilly. And even on some current maps, I've seen on maybe one of the Google Maps even, it's spelled a little differently than we've had cause to spell it.
Wow. I was always curious about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we are here with two lovely ladies who head up this nonprofit that keeps the house. And why don't you introduce both of yourselves real quick, who you are and what you do here?
I'm Sarah Blocker. I'm vice president of the board here and manage the print shop, our letterpress studio.
And I'm Harriet Langford. I'm president of the board of directors here who actually own the property.
Wow.
It was founded by William G. Haynes, Bill Haynes, back in 1993.
Wow. And so what's the question I'm trying to ask? So what is the purpose behind it, the mission? There, thank you.
It's a very broad mission, and we're so happy about that. It gives us leeway to interpret and provide programming in many, many areas. I don't have a copy of it right here in front of me, but Sarah helped me out a little bit. We are all about book arts, our letterpress studio, and Sarah can tell you more about that. The actual printing was big that's why we're, here, and that's why we're on the National Register. But we also have the science and environment part, because after Bill got caught up there in the technology changes with printing, he went to his other passion, which was environmentalists. His big crowning glory was to help save the Altamaha River from the Corps of Engineers. And it was a big project that would have ruined the estuaries here, would have killed the shrimping, the crabbing, and the fishing industries. And he rallied from the ground up, but also knew many, many influential people throughout the state. And in the end, he was awarded the Rock Howard Award from DNR for his environmental work.
Wow.
So that's part of our mission.
And history.
Yeah, of course, history and culture, local history and culture.
So we had a great tour of the house, but why don't you give our listeners just a bit of the history of the house? There's a lot that happened here.
You're right. I don't know the history that comes before Thomas Spalding, but I'm sure this land, which is on a small bluff overlooking Black Island Creek, which is part of the Altamaha Delta. It's a beautiful property that we have 80 acres of. It's 40 marsh and 40 high ground. It was first inhabited that I know of by a European descendant. Thomas Spalding was a second generation Scot, and he and his wife and his mother were on this property as a mainland home for Thomas's plantation home on Sapelo Island. That's where his slaves were for the most part. They worked on that island to produce the cotton that was so big and made Spalding quite wealthy. But this house, known as the Old Tabby, because it is a tabby structure, and the house we're in today, the central core of the house, is still that original Thomas Spalding Tabby: shell, lime, water, and sand. A building material that was not new, but Thomas decided to bring it back during the day. And quite a few structures, lots of ruins still around Darien in this county and up and down the eastern coast, really, even up into South Carolina. Are there Tabby there, Sarah? Yes,
Beaufort.
That's right, Beaufort area. In Florida, they would have used coquina shell. Here, it's obviously oyster shell. But this house was his home when he was on the mainland. Thomas was a founder of the Darien Bank, which was a huge enterprise back in that day. He was an attorney. He was a representative in the state legislature, and in fact, his death in 1851 occurred after he had been in Milledgeville, Georgia, which was the capital at the time. He was arguing against secession. But the house was left to his son Charles. They had many children, not all survived. His wife, by the way, was Sarah Leake from Jekyll Island. And her father owned property on Sapelo as well as on Jekyll. So that's kind of, I think, how one of the ways he got to Sapelo was through his wife. But his mother was a McIntosh.
Okay.
Who had married James Spalding, who was the first Scot here. James was with Oglethorpe on St. Simon's, and Thomas was actually born at or near Fort Frederica. Ended up here, had this house and also a large mansion, as some people call it. They like to call it the big house on Sapelo. Both were constructed somewhere between the time that Spalding came back from Europe, trying to get his heritage all straightened out and get some papers that would give him some credibility here in the States, which was not the States yet, of course.
Yeah.
It was still the colony of Georgia. Anyway, he came here. His mother was a McIntosh. We think this was a McIntosh land grant to that family from one of the Williams. You know, they like to call each other the same names. William McIntosh appears several times. But that land grant was this property.
Wow.
I know, yeah, quite a story there. And then it was abandoned after around the Civil War. Charles didn't want to keep up a two-story flat roof Tabby building. He had already created his own home further out, Georgia, what's now Georgia 99, once was the Shell Road. And he just let it go. And so he had to sell it after the Civil War. And that was around 1870. And then some people who moved in the 1880s named Wilcox, some merchants from Darien, renovated Ashantilly. They did not like the classical details Spalding had brought back from Europe. They enclosed open loggias. They took out the marble statuary, got rid of the columns. That had already happened right as Charles was selling the house. And it lasted through several owners until William G. Haynes Sr., they called him Will. Will was on a trip, railroad stopped here. He saw the property was for sale, and he and his wife, who was a Grant from Atlanta, Laura Grant, were living in Columbia, South Carolina at the time, but they bought the property here and moved. And that was around 1918. Wow. Bill was, our founder, Bill Jr., was about 10 years old.
Wow. And then it had a fire, correct?
Yes. The fire that occurred that was just really devastating was, Bill was in his, I guess, early 20s, but it caught fire from a chimney spark. Newspaper had been put in the chimney. The air sucked it up and got on the cypress shingles, and there it went. Took it down to the core Tabby structure. The wings were destroyed. It was a very symmetrical building with a two-story house with wings, and they eventually had to just take down completely one wing. It could not be restored. But Bill Haynes Bill Jr. said, we got to rebuild. And so in 1940, he started the renovation, which he never, ever quite completed, for those of you who come up here and see our charming place. But he did a lot of work before he was called up to World War II, where he went to Camp Stewart, which is now known as Fort Stewart, of course. And then he ended up in New Guinea, where he was pursuing his art training that he had gotten in New York in the 20s and 30s. He was studying to be an illustrator, a book illustrator. And World War II occurred. The family moved back in. They had been out of the house about 2 years, living close by. And the money that was in that family was, not quite enough as time went along. And so the house never got completely restored, but it was very livable. And when Bill got older and had been turned to letterpress printing as his vocation, he found that meshed all of his skills. He did have an artist's eye, and that was picked up on when he got his first job in printing, which was to help print the Frick Art Collection catalog. That was in the 50s when he was at Cooper Union when he came back from the war. But when he decided to turn to printing, he did return to Darien to open the Ashantilly Press in 1955. And Miss Bessie Lewis, who was the historian of the day, had just found a map of Fort King George in the Georgia archives. And she said, Bill, you have to print this. So his first job was a hand-done silkscreen map of Fort King George, which we still have copies of.
Wow. And we didn't get a chance to look at the printing press, but can you describe what's in the printing press?
When we first started with the printing press, with the press starting it back up, it was a typical one-man shop. It just had little alleyways through stuff, and it was not conducive to students. So we spent probably about 2 years just renovating and getting everything lined up. We brought more presses in because Mr. Haynes' press was this huge platen press and not very usable for students. So we got a smaller platen press, and we got a Vandercook press, which is a flatbed press, which is pretty sought after now. But we got it all cleaned up and all. We now teach letterpress courses. We have card classes where you can come, make cards for Christmas or holidays. That's and we have open studios where you can come do free cards. We generally set 2 cards on each press. One on each press, so it's 2 cards. And we'll print like the first color, and then you come in and print the second color. And we have a good turnout for that.
Very big turnout.
Wow.
A lot of fun. And kids really enjoy it. Yeah. We have school groups.
We have a lot of school trips that come and print. We have little kids even, which, most people would say, how can you let them print? But, they love it. The Vandercook has a gripper, what we call a gripper pedal, and that you press on that and it raises these little grippers, and that's where you slide your paper. And so the kids all love the gripper pedal.
And this just for everybody, listen, this is old technology, correct?
Yes.
So no like computer graphic arts, all that fancy.
Although we get the graphic arts students to come, and it's amazing how much jargon that they use comes from letterpress.
Yeah.
Right.
All of them know that there's 6 pica in an inch. They all know that, But everything letterpress is pica.
Right.
We don't use much inch measurement.
Wow.
This is, like you said, this is all done by hand. It's not a printer, hitting, clicking a button, and you're setting the images, right? And the lettering and
every letter's individual letter. You do lines of type, and then you set each individual letter.
It takes a special person, I think, to really enjoy that feel of setting it.
It's called
getting
OCD.
It right. Yeah.
I'd say like almost like a surgeon because you have to have kind of steady hands a little bit there. I mean,
Yeah.
It's
my sausage fingers probably wouldn't work.
And you never have fingernails.
It's like almost like a guitar player.
yeah. It's specialized. Bill had a big magnifying glass, and he would have needed it because he uses the.
He used the
What the-
smaller, our studio has from 8-point type all the way up to 72-point in metal, and then we have larger, wood type. But he used a lot of the smaller point because he did books.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that we did when we renovated the studio was acquire some larger. We don't like students to use anything smaller than 18 because it's hard for them. So
What would be so back in this day? How long would it take to print a book?
well, it would take a long time. I would say, depending on the book, of course. But if it's a pretty significant book, it would probably take you months.
Bill Haynes' first book that he printed, very novice printer that he was very confident and told the ladies that wanted him to reprint a book that had already been done about Savannah. He said, well, I'll be glad to print your book, but I would like design rights. I would like to redesign your book. And that was very bold. But they agreed, freehand. And he had this small letterpress that he had bought in 1945.
It's a tabletop.
Yeah, tabletop. And it was purchased in Riceboro. The guy was a pharmacist and used to print his own labels. And so it had sat for a while, and so here Bill pulls this out, and it took him a full year because he didn't quite have enough type to set the whole book. He had to print parts of it, break it down, use those same pieces of type again. And he said, I really grossly underbid this job. It took a year, and I don't think he made much money, but it was the first of one of many award-winning book designs that he created.
Now, do you also bind the books? Did he bind the books here, or did he have
I
to
think
send
he
them?
did some minor binding. In the end, he did send them off, and in some cases, he sent them. I have learned not too long ago that he actually, in his latter years, didn't always print all of it. It was set by him and designed by him, but he didn't do it all. But for the most part, yes, all of it done.
Wow, that's
I can't
amazing.
imagine.
Yeah, I can't. I mean, just to think back to that older technology. Then now you just hit a print button and the paper just spews out whatever you
Well,
wrote.
letterpress now is an art, and it's huge
Yes.
all over the country.
It's fascinating because, like you're saying, this was print media for a very long time, and just to kind of print some of these things out, you think about how they printed out. We're going to talk about a little bit of the colonial, like Common Sense. It's not very big, but it was mass produced back then, and it was all set by hand.
Printed by hand.
But that's one thing about letterpress. We have people say, "Oh, I only need 1 or 2 copies." Well, it's just as much trouble to print 1 or 2 as 50.
Well, yeah, once you get it set, you might as well just keep going.
The setup takes longer than anything.
Yeah.
Because then after that, it's just what
Just keep printing.
keep printing.
Depending on which type press you're working on.
Right. And so talk about the paper. What type of paper would be needed for these types of presses?
Letterpress printing is better on a rag paper, some cotton content. We use cardstock a lot just for cards and all. But if you want to do a quality print, you're going to want rag paper.
And you have people who make their own paper who have come to
Really?
use our presses.
I was about to ask, where do you get the paper from?
There's a lot of places that sell it. It's all different brands of paper, and that we have a lot. Mr. Haynes left us with a lot of really beautiful paper,
Wow.
but a lot of his is text thickness, which wouldn't work for cards and stuff.
Right.
We print coasters. We print cards, a lot of cards, and small and broadsides. We have you know.
You don't use the word poster, but they're broadsides.
But we do. You use posters. We do posters for events. We do our event
That's
posters.
true. That's true.
You know.
Wow. So how do people get involved? So you have now. If I remember before, someone's actually staying at the print house now. Doing
Yes,
something?
tell them about the artist in residence program.
We
Sarah.
have an artist in residence program. Ours is different in that we pay the artist, and which is what it does is allow artists to come that couldn't otherwise afford it, because most residencies you have to pay for.
Yeah.
And so we have one. This year we have two. Normally we just have one, but we're having two this year. And we have a summer resident with us right now, and then we'll have a fall resident in October.
Okay.
And they come for 3 weeks, and they focus on their art and, you know, produce work here.
We've recently renovated a little cottage that Bill had built on the property. It had been used for rentals, and the story about why it was built was kind of interesting. Bill was the only sibling. There were 3 children in the Haynes family. Bill was the only one that got married. Married a girl from New York City who came to Darien in the 50s, which was quite a culture shock, I imagine. Her father was a rather known physician in New York City, but she was a delightful person, and she was Bill's muse, also his proofreader. We found instances of that. We think he may have been dyslexic, actually. But at any rate, he mourned his wife and then finally got interested in someone. And only recently, when I had a visit from one of Bill's cousins, is I got the full story on the cottage. And it was built a concrete block probably around 1980.
Lots of windows.
Lots of big windows, lots of great light. The gal that he was going after was an artist, so he built it as a studio for her. Well, the family, I found out from the cousin, thought she was a gold digger. And Bill didn't think so. Unfortunately, it turned out they were right.
Oh, no.
This person never came after she found out the family money was gone for the most part. And so Bill used it as a rental property, and it has had long-term rentals, but we took advantage of an opportunity to renovate it and make it available for our artist in residence program.
And
we
guest speakers.
and guest speakers
artists.
and things like that.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is. It's a beautiful spot right on the marsh there.
This is art printers, but they're not printing books.
Well, a lot of them are book artists. That's the big draw in letterpress now, or book artists. And they make artist books, and they're usually different looking kind of books, but the book itself is art.
Yes.
There's a lot of big book arts courses in universities now.
Huh.
And the resident that we had, the last one before this girl, she teaches at Mercer, and she's head of their department. She's brought letterpress to them, you know, and because book art is pretty big.
Very. Our current resident teaches art in Savannah, in Chatham County, and has taught at SCAD, and she has done mostly a printmaker. Is that right?
She mainly a printmaker and book
artist, right? And she's working on a book now.
Yeah.
Here is her project. She's going to also do some prints for us. We ask very little of a resident.
We don't ask them to do anything except when we get sponsors for our residency, and we like to have a little perk for them that the artist made. You know, so that's really the only request we have of them.
Wow.
So is books coming back? I know they're wild. You have like your Kindle and you can.
Oh, I think so. I'm not worried about independent bookstores that
The independent bookstores have done really well.
They have indeed. It's interesting. If you ever look it up, you'll see that it really kind of gave a resurgence to it. There are people who have to have that tactile book feel, and I go back and forth between the two. Kindle, yes, but I just love a book.
Yeah.
And you can really find your place almost faster.
Yeah, my daughter, she's 14, and she loves books.
Isn't that great?
We'll just go to the bookstore, and she'll just roam the bookstore for hours and just her new thing is Stephen King, so she's been reading a lot of Stephen King books. But yeah, I do see books. You know, the worry of Kindles and all, like with music now you have Spotify and stuff like that. But with books, I think there's always going to be that
I do too.
Want for
I agree.
For that hardcover or soft cover.
Totally agree.
Yeah, maybe because we grew up when we didn't have Kindles and iPhones and things like that. You had to have the books, or you just used to it. But I have some books downloaded on my phone, but I would usually reach for something that I can put in my hand and turn the page.
Yeah. And you can mark on it. I know you can make notes in your Kindle too, but that's not the same for me. I don't know if it's the age or if it's just.
You can see your progress.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. Yes, definitely. See.
God, I was here now. I get these how many pages. With a Kindle or phone,
you can't find how much is left.
You don't know,
it's hard.
So it's.
I would really love to know what Bill Haynes would have thought about it.
Yeah.
This house has 2 very large libraries with plenty of books upstairs as well. They were a book family, and in fact, one person who had interviewed them somewhere before Bill died said this was a book family. They actually read aloud to each other for entertainment, which says a lot. And our collection is always available to people who visit us, and we do tours, by the way, free tours. You just give us a donation of what you think you'd like to give, and we will just give you a tour of this whole property and let you see that. But we would also be open, and have been open, to people at the college who, a lady who was working on a book, wanted to know if we had books on a certain topic, and we did.
Wow.
And we let her use those books.
Oh.
Very good collection of Georgia history, coastal history, art, architecture, maps.
Incredible number of books on print.
Yes.
On
printing.
Topography and print.
And he loved children's books. There's a good collection of beautiful books, some of which came from Europe. He had people that he corresponded with, and that was one of the things obviously printers must have done. Well, here's my latest, and here's mine, and a guy sent him his latest business cards, and I think they were jokes. But we have this whole book of business cards that this guy shared with Bill. Lived in Tennessee somewhere, and they were very clever. I don't know what Bill sent him back, but I would love to have known that too.
And then, speaking about children's book, we did see the Fire.
Thank you for mentioning Fire Dog. Precious book that Bill did as a project when he was in art school in New York City. He had never written the story down, however, and never gotten it printed. He just wasn't really a marketing person. And so a friend of mine who was a reading teacher, reading specialist, created the story for us. And we published Fire Dog not too long ago.
Using his illustrations, correct?
Using his illustrations completely. Yes. We added a little part at the back that explained some of the vintage scenes that you see. There was a one-man band in one of the little things where the guy had the big drum and all kind of cymbals and just crazy stuff. And even parents of some kids would be like, "Wonder what that was." But we took a few of those kind of things, explained those in the back, and then gave a little biography about Bill.
Yeah, we quickly looked at it.
Yeah. It's available on Amazon and at all the bookstores around, and here at the center too. We also sell a lot of Buddy Sullivan's books on local history too.
Wow.
Because he's on our board.
Yeah, Buddy's on our board.
Okay.
12-member board. Basically, we own the property, which is some days very terrifying.
Because you are non-profit.
Non-profit, 501c3, yes.
Wow. So how can people, do you get mostly donations?
We have memberships in Ashantilly. We have a very good website that some of our new volunteers are very involved with. And
it's a great website.
Yeah, it's a good website. We have presence on, you do?
I do Instagram for Ashantilly Press.
And I do the Facebook page. So you can check us out on any of that. But our website's really good and it definitely keeps you updated on what our upcoming events are. We try to do an event Usually one a month.
I'm
looking at Sarah.
Back.
Yeah, they do. They have to hold me back. I'm always thinking up something we ought to be doing. But we do have coming next week a closing reception for our book artist, Lori Darby. And she will be showing what she did, and she also has some of her other work with her, and we'll have some other new prints to show as well. That would be 3 to 6, drop in at Ashantilly on Wednesday the 24th, I think. I believe that is.
Yes, it is the 24th.
24th, yeah, between 3 and 6, just drop by.
And we have a lot of other things coming up that's we got our annual return of the churn.
Yes,
we haven't had our churn off since 2019 was our last churn off.
And that's an ice cream competition. Locals with their best flavors compete against each other, businesses as well as individuals. And you get to come and be the tasters, and you get to vote.
That sounds
for
like fun.
all kinds of levels of.
We have
of
judged
honor.
winners and People's Choice. They
Yes.
all get prizes.
Very, very inexpensive,
Ice cream.
and it's you
we
just
have
get
some
taste.
good ice cream.
Oh boy, do we! You make some of the best, Sarah. She does.
So,
She
so I guess here's a quick question: how do you keep the ice cream cold in this heat?
Well, they have to churn it at home
Okay.
and get it
They don't
rock
have to,
solid.
but we
no,
prefer
but
'em
we
to do
prefer
that.
that because
Yeah.
it's almost impossible to
Yeah.
churn it.
I
to
make
its
mine the
hard.
day before and I put it in the freezer overnight.
And
so
then
that
we provide ice to ice
just
it all.
pack it back
keep
in
it,
ice.
Yep, here.
It stays pretty good.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Might have
And
to
we
come
have
check it out.
live music, and we have a little raffle of it's not a silent auction. This is just a raffle of locally donated items, sometimes from people and sometimes from businesses. And you buy tickets for the raffle. You actually can put your ticket in the place of the items that you want.
Cool.
It's not a just,
Right.
random draw. It's you get to try to get the one you want, the one you want. We get a lot of things from native plants. We have a native plant person up the road, and she brings plants for the raffle. And sometimes we get gift cards from restaurants, things like that. Just great variety, a lot
Free
of fun.
popcorn and lemonade.
Yep. Bring your chairs. That's all we ask. Bring your chairs. We do have a cornhole. If you get bored, who could get bored with good ice
I
cream,
know.
right?
Going around getting ice
Oh
cream.
my gosh. I'm from the Boston area. Massachusetts, I think, still per capita has the most ice cream shops.
Really?
Someone can fact check that, but there's a lot of. There's some chains, but there's a lot of like mom and pop, and there's one in our town called Rankatories, and he made all of his own ice cream, and that was like the spot to go Friday night after dinner. We're all getting together, figure out where we want to go. We go over to Rankatories to get some ice cream to kind of figure out what's going on tonight.
Oh my gosh.
And but yeah, oh my god, I love ice cream.
Yeah, we're gonna have to try the 24th. I think we should be able to. I think I'm free that night.
Yeah,
Well, no, what is it? Not
it's
the
on
24th.
September
Wednesday.
1st.
September 1st.
September 1st, yeah.
Yeah, the
It's the
next
Sunday
one.
of the Labor Day
Yes.
weekend.
Okay.
That's kind of
Yeah.
our thing.
Mark your calendars.
September
ice cream.
1st.
And then our next big event would be October the 5th when we have this year it's truly the blues and barbecue.
Nice.
Have
Local
live
craft beer.
and local craft beer.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm big into the craft beer.
We'll give a shout out to Rick Caldwell for the barbecue. It's fabulous. And we have a blues guy coming from Savannah, right?
Nice. That'd be great.
Eric Culberson, if you know him.
Now, besides the printing press, what else happens on the center?
Gosh, we have books and authors talks. It can be local. It can be people that relate to perhaps a theme that we're doing. We have had one of the last things that we did before COVID kind of shut us all down was a trailblazing African-American women of the coast. And we picked out 3 very lightly known individuals in the past. We had Susie King Taylor from Liberty County, who was a nurse who actually on St. Simon's during the Civil War was nursing Union soldiers and teaching them to read and write, doing laundry work, doing all kind of things. We had from Glenn County the Deaconess Alexander, that was the Episcopal, had been named recently as an Episcopal saint.
Huh.
She went from a Pennick that's out 341, a Pennick church, She would walk and row across the Altamaha to come to Darien to teach children to read and write.
Wow.
That was one of many amazing things that she did, and that was back in late 1800s. And then the person from McIntosh that even a lot of locals had never heard of was Elizabeth Elaine Lemon. She taught Dr. King and was his favorite teacher.
Wow.
And she was said to have walked to Atlanta. Wasn't that the one? Yeah, walked to Atlanta to get her own education.
Wow.
But she ended up being very well known, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, worked with the Y program internationally. But just nobody knew that.
That's amazing.
But so we focus on things like that.
We also do a collaboration with Coastal Wildscapes. They're a local group. They're all over the area, but they promote planting native plants, and so we have 2 native plant sales here a year, spring and fall, and there's a lot of talks about native plants and stuff.
Yeah.
You can learn a lot.
They don't have a building, so we're the host for some of their programs. We have one coming about salamanders coming in August. And we also have paired with UGA Extension. Gal came and did green cleaning products when we did the Sustainability Week around Earth Days we participated in the Earth Days program last spring. We have a longleaf pine forest, demonstration forest here on the property. And
we've done programming in the
around that,
longleaf. Yeah.
yes. We are about to be even bigger in Bartram, for those of you who know of William Bartram, who spent a whole year in 1793 in McIntosh County and became a very close friend to the McIntoshes, Lachlan McIntosh, in fact. And Bill Haynes had just such a respect for William Bartram as an observer of nature and then of one who interpreted what he saw in his travels, Bartram's Travels. We have lots of copies of that book here. And at the moment, we're working on another one that is based on Bill's watercolors done again in New York in 1934 of the travels, Bartram's Travels, as embellished by Bill Haynes. That book is being created even as we speak.
Wow.
So there'll be some programming on that.
So there's a lot going on here. You keep pretty busy. That's really good.
Yes, understatement.
Besides keeping up a 1800s house.
Yes, that's been a super challenge. Fortunately, we have a very fine electrician who has been able to help us many times. And that brings up, Sarah, what else has happened there on the side of the print shop?
We now have facility for volunteers, a campsite.
Oh.
And so they come and they can plug in, and then they help us do stuff, which has been great.
Wow.
We also have a 1960 Spartan trailer, camper.
Yeah.
But it's a
man.
part
model
because it's 10 by 50.
Wow.
And
It once was on Fort King George Drive, and then it was in a trailer park not far from it, and donated
the
to
hope
us.
is that we will make that housing for our interns and residents, and people that want to come and pay us to use our studio. So that's what that'll eventually be. But all our funds got diverted to the cottage, so
yes, and we could definitely use volunteers to help us get that Spartan going.
We'd love to have volunteers.
We've gotten a good start and gutted it, so we're not going to try to take it all the way back to retro 60, but
I just want to make it comfortable.
Yeah.
Habitable.
That's a big one too. 50 feet.
Yeah. Oh, it's huge.
Wow.
Luxury.
It had 3 axles.
Oh my gosh. Oh wow.
The operative word is.
Then we got it moved here with a tow truck.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was fun to watch.
Yeah.
Oh
That
gosh.
must have been a scene.
Yeah.
So before we got on, I was telling you about my affiliation with the Longfellow House and how that has become part of the National Park Service. Do you have that?
We are funded by our members and patrons, and our events. We are on the National Register of Historic Sites, but it's primarily for Bill Haynes' art and his printing. And it, of course, didn't hurt to be a Tabby house from Spalding's era. It's just that it wasn't the whole original house. We do have the original core, of course. But no, we don't get any state funding. We do get grants and have had amazing, and I really hope a lot of our friends hear this, because we could not have done what we've done without the myriad of people who've either served on the board or have been patrons, and some are current supporters on a monthly basis.
That's amazing.
Great. If you listen to that and you're a patron, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
You keep this place and keeping history alive.
It's important.
It really is. I'm a big history person. I grew up, just outside of Boston, and when we have talks about the Revolutionary War and they pull out maps, I'm like, well, this is where my house is, and here's where my high school is, and so it made sense. It resonated to me. All that stuff was around me. Yeah. The site of the Boston Massacre, the Paul Revere's ride. Listen to my children, you shall hear.
But we don't get stuck in it, right?
No.
We don't get stuck in the history.
No. Yeah.
We interpret it so that we can understand our future better.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's good to know, because it was that, knowing your history, if you understand your history, you know your history, you're not bound to repeat it.
We hope.
One of our PR lines is preserving history to enhance the future.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah,
yeah, enhance.
Yeah,
and there's one of the reasons why I like down here in Darien and in Brunswick is there's still so many beautiful old houses. And each one of those houses have a story to tell. Some houses have bigger stories. But, you go down Union Street in Brunswick and you get these beautiful houses, and every once in a while you see one that's like, and for me, it's like, I look at that as like a lost puppy. I want to build bring it back, and, because they're beautiful. They're proud structures. And so we need to do more to bring that back and preserve it, having that sense of history, knowing where we came from, so we can know where we're going. And it's wonderful, whether it's here or up north or out west. I lived out in California, and they have an old house that was built in 1891. I'm like, that's not old. But then if you go to Europe and you say, well, I stay in a house that was built in 1752. I'm like, well, that's it. And like, this house was built in 1241. I'm like, what? So it's perspective a little bit, but it's wonderful. I love it. I love old houses. Maybe it's because I grew up running around the Longfellow house and stuff like that, so it makes it different. But coming here makes me feel closer to my background. And when I go down Union Street or I look at some of the houses around here in Darien, it's like, oh man.
Well, Buddy Sutherland likes to talk about sense of place, your sense of place, and he sees the Altamaha Delta as just the environmental impacts of living on a river like that mm-hmm. has influenced Darien's past and its future. Yeah. And I really appreciate that thought, and your sense of place is important. It is usually about family, mm-hmm. and of course there's a lot of Spalding relatives in this area. Unfortunately, the Haynes didn't have many surviving members of their family, but
speaking of family, you still have a lot of curating efforts going, trying to find more about Spalding? And
we do. We're visited periodically by Spalding descendants, and there are certainly lots of McIntosh descendants right here in town, and they have talked about a reunion. So I'm hoping we might be able to host a Spalding reunion sometime soon. But yes, we've curated a lot of things here. By the way, we have a large collection at the University of Georgia, It's in the Hargret Rare Books and Manuscripts Library under the title of the Ashantilly Press Papers, as well as the Haynes Family Papers. And it includes just unbelievable amounts of correspondence to people and of note, and some just of family note. I have to tell you one thing we found that was just unbelievable, but it tells you who Bill Haynes was. Johnny Mercer, Moon River. Johnny Mercer wrote Bill. We found the letter. I hear you're the guy to help me out. I've been writing poems all along in my career, and I really wish you would print a book of my poems. I've been referred to you. Well, somehow we have it, his response was in the file as well. He turned him down. He said, I have this huge project that I'm working on right now, and after that, another very large commitment, and I just couldn't possibly do that for you. I'm so sorry.
Oh, my goodness. Oh.
I know. Imagine that. But that was Bill, because they were close to the Dents at Hofwell, and Bill was part of the group that helped Miss Ophelia turn over her property to the state as a state park site, state historic site. He decided not to do that with Ashantilly, but just as an example of his character, Bill's wife died the day or night before he was to help Miss Ophelia with the lawyers and Mr. Fendig and all the other people involved. Didn't tell anybody except the undertaker. And went ahead and did his responsibilities, and then let everybody know.
Wow.
And printed the most gorgeous little thing for her service that spotlighted his wife and all of her.
He printed the church bulletin every Sunday for the local church.
He would do the inside of one of those commercially prepared outsides. Yeah.
Wow.
And get mad when the preacher would say,
not to let him know his sermon.
I forgot to give you the sermon title, or, oh, no, we need to change the song that we're going to sing this week. The hymn.
No, too late.
Yeah.
But he was instrumental in a lot of other things around here, too. He helped start the Blessing of the Fleet.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, he was, I think, head of the Chamber of Commerce at that point. But very, very active in the Fort King George project as well, to get the blockhouse, to get the fort done, really, and then the blockhouse. Yeah. They've named their nature trail for Bill Haynes.
Wow.
Oh, wow. So he's done a lot more than just kind of printing.
And we're trying to get to the point where we can present that to the public. We have so many things upstairs that need to be shown.
Yeah, he's definitely, a big influence to this whole area.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. So how many visitors do you usually get per week, would you say?
It varies by the season.
Okay.
I will have had 2 or 3 this week, and that's pretty typical. We have been called the hidden jewel, and we of course, with a very low budget, our nonprofit, we are not able to do huge marketing scenarios, but we have. I don't know. What would you say, Sarah?
Because it seems really in spurts.
It is.
We'll have...
But no more than 3 or 4 a week. And right now I'm the main tour giver. We're going to try to get some docents trained.
Yeah. Do you have to make an appointment?
Yes, thank you. It is by appointment.
Okay.
You just call our main number, leave us a message, or you could message us through our Ashantilly Center at Gmail email address.
Or Facebook.
Messenger, to set up a tour. I see a lot of people drive by, and if I'm out here, I'll sometimes say, you want to come in? And we, as I said, I think it's a free tour, but we frequently have very generous donations made. Wow. I think it more than evens out, instead of saying $5 a head.
And we have like clubs that come and visit and stuff. And
garden clubs, book clubs. And we welcome them. Church groups.
Schools? Do you have schools?
Yep, schools.
Wow.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to admit, I didn't know you guys existed until
I know.
until Buddha said, "Hey, we're gonna do this podcast." So I had to look everything up.
We really appreciate the opportunity. It's so nice to meet you all and enjoy your podcast.
It's a pleasure when I got the message on Instagram, and I looked it up. I was like, oh yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
We're gonna do this. This is right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And something that's near and dear to my heart. So, we got to come out here and hopefully everyone who listens to this, you got to come out. It's a fantastic look at the past, but you can see, I don't know how to put it, the history coming forward.
Yes.
You can see
meshing the two.
Yeah.
Our heritage and our past is leading us down another way to interpret.
And if you have an interest in learning about letterpress printing, be sure and attend one of our open studios, because it's free. You just come and print a card, and you learn a little bit about letterpress.
Yeah, and that's something that's really cool because
it's
it's coming back.
Yeah. I wouldn't say a lost art, but I think it's an intriguing art that some people would love to get into.
It's not someone who really hears so much about. I have a cousin who's an artist, and he draws and paints, and but to do the print is something different, and it's a different medium. But you have to be talented as an artist, period, I think. But it's still a skill there that you have to.
And look out if the ink gets in your blood.
Yeah.
Sarah didn't know anything about it, and now she's had a print at the Hatch Show Print in Nashville.
There you go.
Wow. So like with any hobby, once you get into it, you just have to. It gets addicting.
Immerse.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we know how that is with doing this and acting with the Island Players. So yeah, it gets addicting.
Well, since you mentioned that, we're looking to do some reenactments eventually.
Okay.
We did some very early on. We had an evening with Thomas Spalding.
Oh, cool.
And had surrounding supporting actors. We had a little mix in the match of eras in a couple of them, because we took who we could find that had costumes, and we had a little bit of a Civil War when it was really earlier than that, but that's okay. They look good, and we would like to do some of that. And I've tried to get Heather Heath, who is at the Ritz Theater and does Fanny Kimball.
Yeah, Heather's
She does
wonderful.
that one-woman show. We wanted her to come do it for us up here, but she says, no, this is my venue here, and I'll just stay here. Well, we could probably do Mrs. Thomas Spalding.
Exactly.
Or Mrs. Spalding visits with Mrs. Cooper. You never know. We'll come up with something.
That's amazing. How many do you get a lot of international visitors?
We haven't in a while. There was some international. There was a spotlight on international tourism back probably about 10 years ago, and so we had some visitors that came through the Georgia tourism initiatives. But no, not lately.
And we had some from Hinesville, a class that was...
That's true, yeah, Hinesville.
The students that were English as a second language came.
Who were connected to the fort.
We set something up for them to print.
Uh-huh.
That's what we do when we have groups. We set something for them to print.
That's awesome.
Well, the whole thing, actually going out there and doing it and watching it happen.
And we sure could use some interns out there. We have all this material. Bill never took the type apart. He left it. He left it locked up. Isn't that what you say, Sarah? Am I saying it correctly? I don't always use the right words. But it's locked up, and we could teach Sarah could teach someone to proof those for us. Just ink it and, print a single sheet so we could see what we've got. I mean, if we had another whole book, I did have someone call about a book that Bill had printed one time, and it was a historic group in Sandersville who wanted to know if we ever reprinted his book. And we said, no, I'm sorry, we haven't.
And so it depends on if it's already set.
Yeah, it may be still set here. Wow. We don't know that, but we could use people to help us.
So just to make sure, like I understand it, maybe listeners. So he has the type. It's already locked, so you just put it in the press.
It's called a form. He has the form locked up, and usually that just means that you've got it all boxed in, and you wrap a string around it, and it locks it up.
And it sits on a galley, right?
Yeah.
A metal little carrier that's you can actually. Well, you'll have to see it. You have to come and see
so is it almost
we
like,
need to leave a little mystery here.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, so like almost like a little tray that you can just
Yes.
pull and then put it
Yes.
in the press and
But
push it down.
Yeah, but you don't leave it in the tray. But you can easily. Well,
In
Sarah will
letterpress, you
show
cannot pick it up or it'll all fall out.
Okay, yeah.
So you slide it.
Okay.
And these galley trays have one open end, and all the presses and all the imposing stones have a little lip on them. And you put that galley right there and you slide it off.
Ah,
And we have the flatbed press that really students use most.
yeah. So you might have a book that was never printed.
Or yeah, there was something that he started that I've still not found where it is because I don't think it ever did get printed in mass. And it was about the Altamaha.
Wow.
So
So yeah,
Yeah.
then listeners definitely need to come out.
never ending here.
Yeah.
We're about a fourth of the way through proofing what he's left in there.
Oh,
And then we
wow.
got a whole bunch more that was in the house. That's
Yeah,
never
he had
been
brought it
proofed.
in.
My goodness. So what does it take when you say interns? Are you looking for like UGA students or
We'll
Well,
probably would be good.
yeah.
SCAD
Yeah,
students?
maybe. And Coastal Georgia doesn't really have a print, but we're in touch with the art department down
Yeah.
at College of Coastal Georgia. And SCAD moved their print
Letterpress stuff
letterpress
all
to Atlanta.
So they don't want to
Their
work
Atlanta
with us
campus.
because they want their kids to go to Atlanta.
To that campus. So
SCAD's growing too much.
it's really something. Yeah.
So so it's mostly just artists. Do you have like journalists that come just to try
We've
it
had
for
a few
fun?
people who tell us. I worked when we still used the hot lead. It was up a step from what Bill did, but it was still lead type that printed the newspapers. They're fascinated with what we have, and it really brings back a lot of memories for them. But not too many journalists. Now there have been people who have written. Back when Bill was still alive, he got a lot of PR, in particular the local magazines and newspapers. And that has given us a treasure trove of data about him. But
And we've had
We've
some
good-
local publications have done
yes, a feature of Bill.
features.
Yeah.
Well, a feature on the press since then.
Right.
all
And
of that.
Georgia Backroads a number of years ago did a whole piece. William Rawlings, who's an author, who was from Sandersville, where Bill's family came from.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was really neat. Dr. Rawlings did a beautiful article. It was the first really of our being here time that we had a really good piece that we could duplicate and give to people to.
It's just amazing
Yeah.
that keeping this alive, the
Yeah.
press, because
Yeah.
talking about AI, and then yesterday you had that whole like Microsoft go down, right? If anything happened, at least there's still the skill of being able to print on these printing presses.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for keeping that up.
Yeah. I'm
It's a
impressed.
lot of fun.
Yeah. If it's not fun here, we can't do it.
No.
We can't do it.
It shows a lot of patience too. I mean, it's just the time.
Yeah, more than I have. I'm the ADHD one.
So tell the listeners how they can find your website, your website info and Facebook info and all that fun stuff. So if they need to contact you, and how they will be able to do that.
Yeah, AshantillyCenter.org. And that's the main website. Our phone number here is 912-437-4473.
Awesome.
Be delighted to get a message from you. We have new phones after the lightning struck the last set just the other day. Oh, it was a big one. We lost a limb on one of our oaks today as well through that last storm. The Facebook page is Ashantilly Center and the Ashantilly Press.
Okay.
And your
Instagram is just Ashantilly Press.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah. Whoever's listening, you need to take a trip out here. I just love this old Tabby house. It's amazing. And hopefully get to check out the press. But
Yeah, come down to Darien, or up to Darien.
up there or down,
down, wherever
up
you are.
down,
That's
left, right. Well,
It's
not left.
down Highway 99, and It's
very close to. It's like a mile and a half from the courthouse.
yeah. It's not that far down 99. 15591 is the street address.
Yes.
There's a nice sign on the side of the road that tells you where to pull in, and you're here.
Yeah. One quick question before we go. Any ghost stories?
I was waiting for that. we heard them a lot, and I tend to kind of propagate that. We have this little face that sometimes appears in the upper story, particularly around Halloween. I would say there are noises. I would say that there are feelings sometimes, and we've had people who have actually heard things. I don't. We would take that seriously and not just be ghost hunters. I did have the deputy sheriffs one year in Darien who told a friend, they said, we'd love to go on Halloween night. And when she told me that, I said, sure, bring them on. I thought they were probably kidding. Well, it got close to Halloween. I said, Miss Lottie, are those deputies coming this year? Oh, yeah, and they're bringing their families. I said, okay, wonderful. I did not turn on one light. They came in the front door, dark as all get out. Of course, they had their phones, and a few had flashlights. We trooped up 2 flights of steps all the way even to the 3rd floor. And I said, now, you have to give me a report. If you record one and see it, you better send me a report. Unfortunately, I never got anything.
Oh.
I know.
And
A lot of the locals believe it's haunted.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
They do.
So you should have a paranormal investigation.
Yeah. I did put one little stupid red light that sort of glowed off in one corner, and then the face in the middle dormer.
Oh my God.
I did accidentally scare a little boy one time too. I said, "Oh, I think I see that. I think I see something in that." And he looked at me and said, "Oh." That, oh gosh.
Yeah, I had to ask because my oldest, she is big into haunted ghost stories. Like she loves doing the St. Augustine ghost tour, the St. Simon's ghost tour, the Savannah ghost tour. So I know if she hears this, she's like, "How come you didn't ask if it's haunted or not?"
Right.
Because she's gonna want to come. She's gonna if it's haunted.
It might if she has. Maybe she can feel something.
She says she can feel.
We talk to Bill Haynes and his sisters a lot, and usually we're hitting don't we hit rough patches and say things like Bill, Bill.
I do it in
Show
the
us the
print
way.
shop. I'll be having a particularly hard time with a lockup. I go, all right, Bill, and it seems to straighten out. I don't know why.
And then you're getting to the end of your rope. You think we just can't. How are we going to do this? And then something marvelous falls in your lap.
Wow.
Like a big donation, or somebody has a good idea that's just going to be fabulous to do, or it's just amazing.
Yeah, you should have a Halloween night.
We might. We might.
That'd be, great.
Yeah.
Right next to the Spalding Cemetery.
Yeah. You'd have a nice haunting.
That's a spooky cemetery.
We actually had an event that happened to us many years ago. The board, we had a burn pile that we wanted to get rid of, so we thought, why not? Well, Halloween. Kids here do drive through here on Halloween and through the cemetery. So about 4 of us were sitting by the bonfire. It was late. The cars had quit going through, and we were just sitting around. All of a sudden, we hear a bagpipe.
See?
Like one good stanza of a bagpipe.
No car, no doors, nothing.
Wow.
No sound.
Out of the blue.
Out of the blue, and we all looked at each other and said, "You heard that, right?"
Yeah, I know.
and we did. And one of the gals that was with us, called out, and we said, "Well, don't stop," or "Where are you?" Never heard a car or anything.
Wow.
That was kind of,
That's
and it
was
was
a little
very
spooky.
clear. It was very clear.
Yeah.
see. That'll be good. There's so many good ghost stories in this area,
Aren't there?
and some of them are published. You can find them. So to have a group of people out in the cemetery and with one of the maybe they can pull a handful of stories out of a few of the books that are local between Darien and Glen and
Yeah.
and
Yep, that would be fun.
Yeah.
get someone who's a really good storyteller
Yes.
to get out there and just talk
Talk about
that'd
that.
be-
about-
It
yeah.
would be very good.
Yeah.
I feel like we've talked a little bit about something similar to that, and we just want to be very respectful.
Yes.
If we're in a cemetery, but Buddy has done a cemetery tour for us before, walking tour
From the history aspect.
But to me, it could be very moving to do it perhaps at twilight and have prominent figures speak.
Yeah.
And if we were allowed to do that, it would have to be all in a very respectful historic interpretation
Absolutely.
thing. But yes, that's certainly been discussed, and we need those reenactors to learn a little short script.
Hey,
You're good.
I'm
huh?
good. Yeah, I mean, I do have that kind of revolutionary
Yes,
beard.
The look. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know
you
it.
got it.
That'd be fabulous.
Yeah, I have that revolutionary beard, or even a Blackbeard's beard.
Well, that really came into off and on in our country's history,
Yeah.
right?
The beard, yeah.
beard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully it's making a comeback.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on here. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for visiting us.
Yeah.
Oh,
we
I was
we
looking
love
forward
good,
to this one. so.
appreciative people who come to see us, and those who maybe aren't either. We like you
Yes.
too.
Yeah, yeah. No, it was great. I appreciate. Thank you again for inviting us and
Yeah, showing us around in the history. So we're really appreciative. Thank you so much for reaching out to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.